Hello, welcome to Portal Charities Inclusion in Action webinar series. We are here today with Mary Damaris, who is an expert on all things Catholic inclusion and also an expert on peer mentor systems and programs. So my name is Carmen Chiappetta, and I'm the chair of the Education Committee for Portal Charities. And we're going to tell you a little bit about Portal right now. Portal Charities is a nonprofit in Northern Virginia. We are dedicated to embracing Catholic education and meaningful employment for all. So what that means is that we educate and advocate and fundraise for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities to be able to be in our Catholic schools and fully supported. And we also help coordinate meaningful employment afterwards. This is all part of our goal, which is to be able to build a culture of belonging. And so this is our three parts: Catholic education, meaningful employment, and community outreach. Part of the community outreach is offering webinar series like this. And we hope that this helps to foster true belonging for all of our students and families. All right, and with that, I will let Mary Damaris introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be doing.
Thank you, Carmen. Sorry for the slide, little hiccup there. So hi, everybody. Like Carmen said, my name is Mary Damaris, and I am the founder of Catholic Inclusion. I have been in special education for 10 years. 7 of those were at a Catholic high school that I helped initiate the Peer Mentor program, really helped to get that off the ground to be a successful model that other schools have now looked to. I currently work with other Catholic schools in helping develop peer mentor programs and helping teachers understand how to make modifications for students so students with intellectual and developmental disabilities can have access to Catholic education. I've spoken at the NCEA conference, Council for Exceptional Children conference, as well as the Beyond Inclusion conferences as well on this topic. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact me through the bit.ly here. That is case sensitive, so just to be aware of that, or Mary at Catholic Inclusion, and I'd be more than happy to hop on a call with you and discuss any questions that you may have after viewing this webinar. So let's just jump right into it. So like Carmen said, this is going to be a 3-part webinar series. The first today is the part 1, the peer mentor overview. Just what is it? Who are the players involved? How can schools put peer mentor supports in place to help students with intellectual and developmental disabilities be included? The second part is more specifically what this looks like at an elementary school. And the third part is what it looks like in a high school setting. So if you are an elementary school administrator or teacher, parent, the second part might be more up your alley. And then for the third part, for those interested in starting peer mentoring at the high school level. So for today, our agenda is just talking through why we should be inclusive, what peer mentoring is, the benefits of peer mentoring, what the research says. So this isn't just something that, we think is a good thing that we should be doing. There is, secular research out there as well. And then how does peer mentoring work in practice, going through what some of the day-to-day things look like there. So why be inclusive? Really, we have the gospel message. Like Jesus said, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them. Matthew 19:14. So we have the gospel mission and the gospel message that we need to be inclusive. And then leading into social justice as well. Pope Francis calls us to include those who are on the margins, as does Jesus calls us to reach out to those who are on the margins of society. And people with disabilities are on the margins. Those with disabilities are a vulnerable population. And when we talk about Catholic social teaching, one of them is an option for the poor and vulnerable. We are quite literally creating an option for a vulnerable population to be included. And again, thinking through community and participation. You can't participate in your community if you're not there. So really thinking through Catholic social teaching as well for being inclusive. And then the NCEA standard and benchmarks for Catholic schools through, this is right off the NCEA website, their standard number 3, talking about providing Catholic schools. And that last line here, I think, is so, so important. And action in service of missionary discipleship and social justice, going back to that social justice piece. So we have these calls to be inclusive, and how we can do this is through the use of peer mentors. Now, this is one part of being inclusive. There's other pieces to this quote unquote puzzle, but this is an aspect. So we will dive into that now. So peer mentoring is, I like to kind of interchange peer mentoring and partners in learning, and use those words interchangeably, because they truly are partners together in the learning and education experience. Your peers supporting peers. The peer mentor is a neurotypical student who attends class with the peer that they are supporting. And the sole role for the mentor in that class is to help facilitate learning. They are not taking the class. So they're not trying to take their own notes. They're not trying to participate with the class and being called on and things like that. Their sole role is to support their peer who has a disability to help facilitate learning. They are trained at the beginning of the year and throughout the year, supported by the special education teacher or director of special education. If things come up and peer mentors are not sure how to handle a certain situation. There may already be some informal peer mentor arrangements, and schools may be already doing this and not knowing that it was actually a thing, so to speak. And it is getting increasingly popular as an avenue for providing inclusive Catholic environment for students with intellectual disabilities. I've gotten more calls this past summer, even from high schools, being like, how do we do this? What steps do we need to take? It's ever growing in popularity because it works. And it facilitates belonging. There are so many different positive outcomes that we will get into, but true belonging, it's rather than having a aide or a para, an adult following or shadowing a student one-to-one throughout the day, you have peers. So there's more opportunities for age appropriate, typical type conversations that students can have with their peers. And it invites more students to interact with the student who has a disability because they're with a similarly aged peer, not an adult. And they might, hold back a little bit if the student with an intellectual disability was with an adult. Other classmates might hold back a little bit in maybe initiating conversation or, sitting with them at lunch or inviting them to join the basketball game, things like that. Where with peers, there's more opportunities for some of that. Now, with the benefits, we have on the left here, students with disabilities, benefits for them, as well as on the right, the benefits for students who are acting as the peer mentors. And in the middle, we have where that crossover is. So the benefits of inclusion for students with intellectual disabilities, they really can understand those age-appropriate behaviors because they are modeled throughout the day from their peers. There's better participation socially and academically as well. And inclusive setting at the high school level, being inclusive at the high school level is one of the strongest indicators for independent living and post-secondary opportunities. So you have students who are included in a Catholic high school as much as possible. That's a very strong indicator that they will have an opportunity to live independently and be successful in post-secondary options, and as well as finding a job. Same goes for peer mentors. They have great benefits here, learning about people who are different, understanding that disabilities are part of human nature, and understanding that just because somebody may learn differently or has an extra chromosome doesn't prevent them from being able to participate in some of the typical high school classes, with the understanding that they may need more support, they may need modifications, but the peer mentors really can learn about people who are different and help to grow build a more inclusive world. Hopefully, we have future leaders, future teachers, future doctors, future priests, principals, and the hope, right, is that the students who were peer mentors can take that experience and recognize, A, when people with disabilities aren't present, they can then do something, or think back and reflect on their time and understand, let's say they are a doctor or a therapist and a person with a disability comes to them, they might understand through their lived experience now, this person might just need more time to explain, what's bothering them or to explain their symptoms. And they have that patience that they can think back from their high school experience to inform how they are acting as a professional. And I realize people are like, they're in high school and then that's in their professional life. High school is a very formative time, and having this opportunity have a lifelong impact. But I kind of got off on a tangent there. But let's go back to what's kind of in the crossover in the middle here. We have friendship, self-esteem, academic benefits, and social skills that both peer mentor and the student with disabilities get from peer mentoring. Now, there is secular research out there that also supports peer mentoring. And I won't read all of these word for word here, but Eric Carter has done a lot of research in this field, and it's really fantastic. And in 2006, it was recognized as an especially promising vehicle. And then in 2017, it is now an evidence-based practice for promoting social interactions for secondary students with severe disabilities in both core and elective classes. And as we look to the right here too, non-disabled peers learn the differences. And that's what I've talked about previously as well. It's a counter narrative to what they have kind of been taught throughout society. And it humanizes a population that has historically been viewed as less than. And I think particularly as Catholics, what can be more pro-life than that? We are humanizing this population that historically has been treated terribly. And we are now opening our doors, including them, and giving them the support that they need to be successful in our schools through the use of peers. And these are quotes from students who were in this research. They were called PSAs, peer support arrangements. So just a different phrase from peer mentoring, but these students were saying that they're not necessarily all going to go into special education, but they are going to be advocates. They allow, the one quote here to the right, I want to go into product development fields and develop accessible resources for people with disabilities. So like I said before, we don't need necessarily a world of special educators. We need a world of empathetic, compassionate, understanding people who are going to make our world more inclusive. And peer mentoring is a great place to start for that. That can then launch us into a more inclusive world. Now, how does it work? Who are the players here? So we have administration, parents, gen ed teacher, special ed teacher, peer mentor, and students with disabilities. All of these people play a key role in finding successful inclusion at your school and have a hand in setting up a peer mentor model. So first and foremost, administration. You need administration on board in order to do this. They're the ones who are going to say yes. They're the ones who are going to get it all set up. So administration has to be really on board initially. But in the day-to-day, once they have said yes, have kind of put the pieces in place, they're there to check in with the team, to identify any hurdles that might be hindering success, and then work to troubleshoot those. So working with the teachers, the parents, if there's anything that might be happening that's preventing this peer mentor model from being successful, taking a step back and evaluating and putting some things in place to address that. Parents are the other key team member here. We believe they're their primary educators of their children. And in order to make sure there's that school to home communication, we want to have an open line of communication so parents and teachers understand what's going on at home, what's going on at school. So if there's any supports or things that either side needs to know about for consistency purposes, we're always communicating. Support learning at home to the degree that is possible, fostering that positive and respectful environment or relationship rather with the school special ed team, and then support out of school. the special education and general education teacher will work very closely together. Special ed teachers can help support those transitions between classes if necessary. If there's any behaviors that may arise during some of those transitions, the special ed teacher may be able to be there to help. If there are any absences or tardies of mentors, the special ed teacher, this is under the assumption that the special ed teacher is kind of the point person for the peer mentor program. Depending on how your school sets it up, that may look different, but tardies or absences of people if mentors are out for the day, finding somebody else to step in and support. The special ed teacher will meet with the gen ed teacher to help support making some modifications. A lot of gen ed teachers, when the school is first accepting students with disabilities, there might be some fear and hesitation. I'm not a special ed teacher. I don't know how to make modifications. And that's where the special ed teacher can come in and support. They can help offer, some suggestions for if behaviors do come up, to help support some transitions and how to actually modify a lesson as well. Again, foster positive and respectful relationship with the families, and initially support some peer mentor parent communication for social events. So if there's things that are going on at school, the special ed teacher might want to communicate that back home. If it's like a dress down day that's happening, that the whole school might know about and know how to communicate to their parents that that's happening. Students with disabilities might need some support with things like that. So that's where a special ed teacher can help kind of bridge some of that communication as well. Gen ed teacher has very similar responsibilities as the special education teacher, making modified lessons, communicating with the director or special ed teacher if there's any concerns, and also the general plan for the week. Discuss some of the lessons that they're going to be doing and the modifications that they made to ensure success and active participation for the student in the class. It is the hope that the gen ed teacher will address any behaviors that may arise in the class, and then also communicate with parents and peer mentors as well. Students with disabilities are expected to report to class on time, ready to work. And again, this is both for high school and elementary school. So hopefully, you're probably not switching classes, obviously, in third grade yet. So some of these may not necessarily be applicable, but for high school, report to class on time, ready to work, works with their mentee and classmates as instructed by the teacher. So if that's group work as well, students are expected to be an active participant in the group too, taking responsibility for their materials, and also attending assemblies, masses, school-wide events that the rest of the class or the rest of the school is attending. And if there's modifications or accommodations that need to be made for those events, that's something that the gen ed teacher, special ed teacher can work to provide. And then the peer mentor reports to class on time, ready to work, just the same first bullet as for the students with disabilities. And they support their mentee with accessing the materials. Now, they are not making the modifications. Like I said before, that is the responsibility of the gen ed teacher or special ed teacher. But if there are small tweaks, let's say, chunking, for example. So if there's a worksheet, let's fold it in half and just focus on the first 5 problems. And that happens in the training. We teach peer mentors things like that, how to make some quick on the fly adjustments to assignments and materials that the teachers provide, engaging in the material, and they're focused on their mentee. So they, like we said before, they're not taking the class, so they are able to focus solely on the student that their partner in learning, the partner or the peer that they are partnered with for that day. And if they do have any concerns or questions, we encourage them to talk directly to the teacher about that. So thank you for your participation here in our first part of our 3-part series. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to set up a time to chat with you. I love talking all things peer mentoring. So the bit.ly link here, you can, that will take you directly to my contact page, or simply reach out at mary@catholic-inclusion.com. And I hope to see you on our next peer mentoring webinar, which is all about peer mentoring at the elementary school. Thanks.